Why is Greenland mostly ice, but Iceland is mostly green? At first glance, the names don't make sense. Greenland sounds lush and fertile, yet it's buried under ice. Iceland sounds harsh and frozen, yet it's surprisingly green. So what happened? Were the Vikings bad at naming things? Or is something much deeper going on? The answer lies in a fascinating mix of geography, climate, ocean currents, and human history. And once you understand it, the world starts to look very different. The naming trick that fooled the world. Let's start with the names themselves. Around the year 985 AD, a Norse explorer named Eric the Red was exiled from Iceland and sailed west, eventually reaching the massive island we now call Greenland. According to historical accounts, Eric deliberately chose the name Greenland as a marketing strategy. He wanted to attract settlers, and Iceland 2.0 wasn't exactly appealing. Greenland did have green coastal areas during a slightly warmer climate period known as the medieval warm period, especially in the south. Meadows, grazing land, and small Norse settlements existed there for centuries. Meanwhile, Iceland got its name earlier, likely from early explorers who encountered sea ice and harsh winters and weren't impressed by its volcanic landscape. So yes, the names are misleading by design. But names alone don't explain why Greenland today is almost entirely ice-covered, while Iceland is not. The most important factor is where these islands sit on the planet. Greenland stretches deep into the Arctic Circle, reaching far north toward the North Pole. Large parts of the island receive very little direct sunlight for much of the year. Winters are long, dark, and brutally cold. Iceland, on the other hand, sits much farther south than people assume, roughly at the same latitude as southern Alaska or parts of Scandinavia. While it is still cold, it receives significantly more solar energy than Greenland. Less sunlight means colder temperatures, and colder temperatures means snow that doesn't melt. Over thousands of years, snow layers in Greenland compacted into ice, forming an ice sheet more than 3 kilometers thick in places. Today, about 80% of Greenland is covered by permanent ice. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Iceland benefits from one of Earth's most powerful climate systems, the Gulf Stream. This warm ocean current carries heat from the Gulf of Mexico across the Atlantic toward Europe. A branch of it, the North Atlantic Drift, flows right past Iceland, warming the air and ocean around it. This is why Iceland, despite its name and northern location, has relatively mild winters and cool summers rather than extreme cold. Greenland doesn't get this luxury. Cold Arctic currents flow along Greenland's eastern coast, reinforcing freezing temperatures. Instead of warmth, Greenland is constantly fed cold water and cold air, locking it into an icy state. Same ocean, different currents, completely different outcomes. Greenland also suffers from a powerful feedback loop called the ice albedo effect. Ice is white. White surfaces reflect sunlight back into space instead of absorbing heat. This keeps temperatures low, allowing even more ice to form. Once Greenland became heavily ice-covered, it essentially trapped itself in a frozen cycle. Even during warmer periods, most of the ice remained. Iceland never crossed that tipping point. Its darker land, vegetation and volcanic rock absorb heat more efficiently, preventing permanent ice sheets from forming over the entire island. Volcanoes versus ice sheets. Iceland sits directly on the mid-Atlantic ridge, one of the most volcanically active regions on Earth. Heat from below constantly reshapes the landscape, melting ice locally and enriching the soil with minerals. That volcanic soil is incredibly fertile. During summer, grasses, mosses and shrubs grow rapidly, giving Iceland its green appearance, especially along the coast. Greenland's interior, by contrast, is buried so deeply under ice that soil development is nearly impossible. Even if temperatures rise slightly, it would take thousands of years for ecosystems to establish themselves at scale. Today, climate change is beginning to shift this ancient balance. Greenland's ice sheet is melting at an accelerating rate, contributing to global sea level rise. Meanwhile, Iceland is seeing changes in vegetation patterns, glaciers retreating, and ecosystems adapting. But even with modern warming, Greenland won't suddenly turn green. Its ice sheet is simply too massive. What we're seeing now is the slow unraveling of a system that took millions of years to form. So why is Greenland ice and Iceland green? Because Greenland sits farther north, receives less sunlight, and is locked into Arctic conditions. Cold ocean currents reinforce freezing temperatures. Massive ice sheets reflect sunlight and sustain themselves. Iceland is warmed by the Gulf Stream. Volcanic activity enriches soil and prevents permanent ice dominance. The names tell a story, but the planet tells the truth. If island names can lie to us this convincingly, what else have we misunderstood about our planet? In the next episode, we'll explore another mystery. Stay curious. The world is far stranger and more fascinating than it first appears.